welcome to Beat Bugle. It's a pleasure to have you here. So before getting into the interview properly, let's just talk a bit about your experience. You've been teaching students in India for approx a week now. Is that correct? So how has your experience been?
Well, it's one of the best experiences I've ever had in my life. During the first classes, the students were a little bit shy, and so I was delivering a lecture, and I was a little bit afraid that they would never communicate with me. But they were very observant. They didn't know what to expect from me. They were silently sitting on their chairs, but then they started to open up. And finally, we started to have a very nice exchange of ideas, conversations, discussions, and I'm really in love with Indian students because, it is a little bit uncommon for me to see so many students taking notes. Normally, our students don't do that. And I gave them a couple of assignments, and they had to write news pieces and reportages for the first time, and these were very good texts. Brilliantly written.
Oh, that's nice to hear. So you've taught here and you've taught back home as well. So what are the major differences? First, like you mentioned about the notes. So what are the major differences that you've noticed between the students here and back home?
Well, I believe that students are the same everywhere. Some of them are very creative, some of them are very obedient, and they are very observant. They looking at you, don't know what to expect from you, and some of them don't care about studies, and this is also normal because being at university doesn't only mean that you have to attend the classes, but you also have to make friendships, to be with your soulmates, and so on. So I believe that people are the same everywhere, but at the same time, I guess Indian students are a little bit more shy, especially in the very beginning. But then they open up and everything goes naturally.
So we need some time to open up.
Exactly.
Excellent.
For the first time I thought that maybe something wrong was with me, but it's the matter of time. So people need a day or two to start trusting you and to really open up.
Right, it makes a lot of sense. And what about the culture? So have you noticed anything culturally that is significantly different here versus back home? Like any culture shock you've come across? Something that you think is drastically different?
To be honest, it is my third time in India.
Okay.
So I was not really shocked this time. But when I came here for the first time in April 2023, so basically last year, I experienced some cultural shock. Because, I had to go from New Delhi to Bhagwara. And I needed to spend 5 or 6 hours in Indian capital. And I thought to myself, well, maybe I would find a nice cafe to sit down and relax, but I could hardly find one in the city center. And the district near the New Delhi railway station was rather dangerous to some extent. And we had to look for a hotel with my friend. And there were dirty streets, there were cows, there were dogs bugging me up, there were people lying on the ground. The smell was not nice, so I was really shocked. And I remember the following thing. I was thinking to myself, my goodness, I love this country very much. I'm a great fan of Indian culture. I like your spirituality. I've read Bhagavad Gita and Ramayana in Russian. I wanted to become a Buddhist when I was younger. So I'm really into my culture, into your culture. And I was praying to God, Lord, I love this country very much, but why does it happen? Why does it happen? Why are people not so nice to me? And then I had even worse smell. I saw the bulls. I saw more dogs barking me up. But finally, I noticed school children going to school. I followed them and entered the schoolyard. And it was like an oasis. The birds were singing, it was green and nice. And I felt very guilty. I was thinking to myself, who you are to judge these people? They live in this district in poverty. And at the same time, they find money for their school children to buy proper clothing, rucksacks, and to send them to school. And I felt relieved. I get out of this schoolyard, and there was a gentleman addressing me. Hey, sir, can I help you? I would like to bring you to the corner place. Let's go. I don't want your money. Let's go. And he was a yoga teacher. And I felt that India opened up to me. We had a nice conversation. I came to the corner place and started to discover India. And after this, I discovered only the positive side of India. People were extremely hospitable, spiritual, very interesting to talk to. Many people are really good intellectuals. They like philosophizing, and they like to get to the bottom of things. They read a lot of books. So I needed to change my perceptions. And once I did it, well, you know, the world you see around you is the reflection of your inner world. If you if you're negative, then you will have negative events going on. And if you're positive, the country will open from the best positive sides it has.
I think that's what the beauty of India is, that it makes you experience every type of emotion. A single place can make you experience a lot of different emotions and
I like being in the town because the towns, the cities are so colorful and people are so diverse. Some are wearing European clothes, but there are lots of women wearing sari, and I believe it is so beautiful and a little bit envious. Russian traditional costume is also beautiful, but people are wearing only it when they are dancing, singing, but you can hardly see people wearing traditional clothes on the streets. And I believe it is wrong, and that's what we need to learn from you people.
being in touch with your culture.
Yeah. So I'm afraid that we're losing our cultural roots. But this is not the case here in India. People still maintain their traditions, and that's what make India's spiritual culture strong. I love, this noise. It is so full of life. It is so animating. Motorcycles, bikes, cars, the noise all around, and it is, that means that this country is full of life. When I come to European countries, for example, everything is nice and clean, but sometimes I have an impression that they don't really live. They're dead. Everything is too good. And here I believe that life goes on. And this is the most positive thing about India, I can tell you. I also love your music very much, sitar, for example. So,
The culture is what amazes you.
yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about you. So can you walk me through your career path? How has that worked out for you?
It is a very long story, to be honest. I was studying history, but didn't become a historian. I wanted to be an eyewitness of historic events. And that's the reason why I decided to become a journalist, and namely international journalist. I wanted to travel abroad, to visit foreign countries, and to get to know interesting people. And if you believe in your dreams, they become a reality. And that's what happened to me. So I became an international journalist. I really covered some historic events in Ukraine, in Russia, in Europe, the migration crisis. That's what I was talking about during my classes here. And but then I got tired of being a journalist because this work is full of stress. You need to keep up the deadlines, you need to write a lot of texts every day, and I wanted to have a more relaxing job. And my friend invited me to join the academia, and so I started to conduct seminars, lectures, and master classes, and I fell in love with this profession even more. I think I'm a better professor than a journalist. Because I like to share the knowledge and I like to learn from my students. I believe it is a reciprocal process. But from time to time, I contribute columns to some Russian and German online media outlets. So this is basically my career. But this is probably my karma. Let me use this Indian word. I escaped from a lot of work, and now I have a lot of work. But it is rewarding since you deal with people, you learn from them, they have stories to tell. I love it.
So you work both in academia as well as in the field as well.
Yeah.
So what are some myths about academic life, like life in academia versus as well as life in the field as a journalist? There are a lot of myths that people might have, misconceptions that people might have about the work culture in both the spaces. So would you like to talk about that?
It's a difficult question because I don't actually know much about misconceptions concerning academics. Many people believe they're boring, that they are too much into their science. I love my science, my scientific research, but hopefully I'm not boring. Because I like cracking jokes, I like interacting, and during my classes, I sing from time to time. I see that my students are bored, and I start singing. Because if you are a professor, you need to be a knowledgeable person, but a showman as well. You need to combine both to transmit knowledge and to entertain the audience a little bit. So it depends on the person. Myths appear when you generalize. And we don't generalize. You see that people are different, you never have misconceptions. And as far as journalism is concerned, many friends of mine say, "Hey, what is really going on? What does our government have in mind? You're a journalist, you're supposed to know that." And I tend to say, no. We are also victims of propaganda. So elites manipulate the minds of the journalists first, and then journalists, sometimes unwillingly, start manipulating people. So journalists are the first victims of propaganda, which is being spread by establishment, by elites, people in power, and so on. So journalists need to have responsibility. They should be objective, balanced, and so on. But don't expect too much from them. They're also people.
So you mentioned objectivity right now. So do you have any tips for aspiring journalists to how do we make sure that we don't fall into the propaganda that you're talking about? How do we maintain an objectivity within ourselves?
What I usually say is that true journalism has to do with a complex view of the world. And propaganda is about simplifications. It is a simple picture of the world around us. But people like, simple explanations. Black and white, good guys and bad guys. And a complex picture might be boring because you need to go deeper in many, many, many different details. But it is our job to explain, to offer the whole explanation. And objectivity is about showing you the entire picture. I like this Indian story about the elephant and blind wise man. One blind wise man noticed only the tail, another one noticed only the leg, and another one put attention to the ear. An elephant is all this. Ears, eyes, legs, and tail. And if you give the entire picture of that elephant, it will be objectivity, it will be true journalism. And if you just speak about a leg or a tail, it will be propaganda. You will reduce reality to a certain fragment. So you need to consider all the facts.
Just make sure to view all the sides of the story.
Exactly.
So thank you so much, sir, for being here. It was a pleasure to talk to you, and I had a really good time. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me. It was really a pleasure to talk to you, and thank you very much for the honor and the privilege to be at university to speak with Indian students. It's really very rewarding.